Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I know I set up this video a little while ago, and what I said was we were going to look at an ultrasonic cleaner. And I'm going to do two videos. I'm going to do a video here on a project reel that's been sitting in my basket a while. I believe it's the 622 Garcia Mitchell, but it might be a different version of it. I know the 624 is the wider, shorter one that's like the Penn 65. And I'm thinking this one is like the Penn Beachmaster, and I believe it's the 622, but I could be wrong. But I selected this one because it's got a lot of greening on it, some corrosion. It's got some ugly dried grease. It always has the spider cracks, it seems, from the design. I've yet to find yellow ones that don't have these spider cracks around the bearing on the gear side. And overall, it's a mess. So I thought we would do two things. I thought we would take this reel apart in one video. We'll take it apart and we'll show you how to service it. And in between, I'm going to create a second video, which is how to use an ultrasonic cleaner. Now that'll be a surprise to all of us because I just acquired it. I've never used it, and we're going to just kind of go step by step by the instructions, and we'll see what kind of job it does on this and see if it's better than manually just cleaning this all off by hand. So let's get started on this one. We're going to take the handle off first. There's a little V-clip stop here that holds the handle screw in place. And I don't have the wrench for this, but surprisingly more times than not, what you just saw there happens. The nut hasn't been fully tightened, and you can take it off by hand. So got lucky there. I generally will use a little channel lock pliers to make that work if that's the case. Next up, the handle comes off. I didn't even have to spin this around. And then the star adjuster comes off as well. Now I'm kind of excited to see what this ultrasonic cleaner does, because they say it can be used on parts like carburetors and things. So I'm thinking it may have an application here, and that's why I decided to go ahead and purchased it off of Amazon. It's a unit that's 2-liter unit. We'll go into that in the next video. It's a 2-liter unit, and it sells for about $70. So we'll see how that plays out here. But I'm curious because again, this has just got a lot of accumulated lifetime grease and grime and dirt and some boat rash and some other things. So we'll just take it apart and we'll see. So right now I'm just pulling all of the side plate screws out. You'll notice if you work versus a pen, a little bit different. These have the kind of a thumb ridge on them so that you can take them off by hand once you break the initial hold on the screw. You can obviously you can use a screwdriver the whole process if you like. I tend to like working with the hands instead. Gives me better control. So we'll take that off, then we're going to take the last one off here on this side. And it says for the ultrasonic cleaner, take all the pieces and parts down. So let's make sure we take them all off and don't put partial assemblies in there. I assume that there is the ability to put a partial assembly in there, but I'm not going to do that. So let's take the other side down. Now these have been sitting a while. There's a chance that you could snap one of these screws. If you feel that you're having trouble with these screws, go ahead and hit that side plate with penetrating oil. Let it work itself in. The other clue here is if you're having trouble turning that, turn the cross post. Sometimes that'll facilitate the screw coming out there, but these seem to be cooperating. They haven't been turned in a while, that's for sure. And as you're noticing, I'm putting the screw right back into the cross block there, just those posts. I tend to do that just to keep the orientation right. It doesn't matter that one is to the left or the right or up or down on the reel, but it does matter to me in terms of having it correct in terms of the screws. That's 3, one more of those. Then we'll have the reel seat. Now see, that post is turning there. You could do a couple of things. So what I'm going to do is what I do most frequently. I just need to find a channel lock pliers. which is this. I'll set it to the first gap. And I don't want to scar that, so I'm going to put a piece of cushioning in there. This is a piece of kitchen scrubby. And then hold tight. And this way you won't get the plier jaws or anything scraping that crossbar. So let's just finish this off. Now, these reels were in the 60s and 70s. They were very competitive with the Penn reels. They have a different gear side architecture, which we'll go over when we rebuild the reel. But it's a good one, and it's proven over time. And the problem that you have with these reels right now is the parts availability. And interestingly enough, I've gone on to eBay a couple of times when I've looked to repair these reels in the past, and I've actually found the eBay European site has a lot more parts. Would make sense. This reel was made in France, and there's a lot of them hanging around Europe still, so I was able to get some parts there. So just a kind of a tip there. We're going to take all of the chrome pieces off, and this says it's good for the plastic pieces as well. So I'm going to put these in as well. I'm going to leave that clicker on there, and we'll just see. Here comes your spool. They don't make spools chromed like this anymore. This is like bumper chrome. I've noticed in the past these things clean up nice, so this will be a good test of the ultrasonic cleaner. We'll go ahead and pull this side off. Here's the architecture behind the reel. And I think I can usually get this, well, just pull that off, that didn't help. I think if you leave the lever kind of in that mode, you can usually get the trim ring off on this side without taking that lever off. But we'll see. Speaking of lever, I need a little leverage on this this piece here, so I'm just using the back of a utility knife. If you go to do this, just be careful. It is a knife. Don't go cutting yourself. But you can see you can get some separation using that razor blade as a wedge. And just not having the effect that I want it to have. That's okay. Just go ahead and take that off. What happens when you try to short stop, it never works anyway. Since I'm going to rebuild the whole reel anyway. Now, a couple of things to note here. I sort of know what I'm doing with this, kind of, sort of. So I'm not stopping. I didn't pull a schematic on this one. Schematics are available. I've done this reel a lot, so I kind of know how it goes. If you don't, make sure you take pictures along the way. I get comments along the line on the videos that I do that somebody's had a reel and the reel popped off and they don't know how the pieces and parts go. And of course, one of the clues there is the pictures, the schematic. Schematics may be around. I haven't checked again for that. But if you don't know how they go, then it's always a good thing to take the pictures along the way to remind you. Now, this thing says it takes care of grease with a mild solvent, and I'm going to use a mild solvent in there, but there's no reason in the world you can't take something like this and just clean that off ahead of schedule. Make the job of that ultrasonic cleaner a little bit easier. Plus, I guess it'll save the cleaning fluid over time. We have a spool gear in here that should be able to come out. I'm just going to take the main gear out as well. And I found on the main gear, again, parts aren't available, and believe it or not, these little things like these side plate screws are the ones that are most frustrating. If you lose one of these screws, finding a replacement is difficult. But overall, the rest of the stuff generally can be had. The drag washers, I believe, kind of line up with a Penn 155. We'll take a look at that later when we go to rebuild the reel. But right now, like I said, I just really want to get the parts in place And here's a spring that's important for the anti-reverse dog. I'll put the anti-reverse dog in there. I'm going to take the spring, I'm just going to put it into a little envelope. I'm trying to find one here without breaking the video. Not finding it at the moment, so I'm going to put the spring in here, but I'm not going to put the spring into the cleaner. And again, here's your bridge, and this looks like the drag washers will line up with the Pen 60, not the 155. I'm going to leave the bridge out. That's clean. I don't think we need to test it versus an ultrasonic cleaner. Here's your bridge screws coming out. And I just wanted to get that main gear, the spool gear off. That's this piece. And I'm going to hold the spring out of the cleaning as well. So even though it's going in our parts tray, it won't go into the basket. And I'm just going to, again, try and help that machine along as best I can by just taking some of this grease off of the side plate. So the whole notion here is if you're dealing with an older reel, make sure you clean it, especially if you don't know the history of it, because it can just complicate your rebuild process if you leave that old dried grease and that in there. Okay, well I think this is good enough for a test. So I should be able to get this trim ring off. I did. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's switch over now. I'm going to pause this video. Actually, I'm going to just end this video and come back and do another one, but we will do the video. I'm going to just put these in here to hold them. I know it's backwards. Somebody will tell me that I put them in the bridge backwards. Yeah, and I got that part. We'll go over. I'll start a video here on the ultrasonic cleaner. We'll do that one start to finish there, see how it does. We'll follow the instructions on the setup, and then hopefully we'll have a bunch of clean parts to come back and complete the work here. So hang on, and we'll be back with this. Hi, this is Dennis. We're back. We just did the video on the ultrasonic cleaner, my first experience with them. I can tell you that I'm very impressed with the results. They did a real nice job of cleaning it up, and I came back where there was a little bit harder tarnish in that, and I just used a little bit of steel wool and some polishing compound, little automotive cleaner, to just take off what the ultrasonic cleaner didn't have. First experience with it, I got to say that it was something that I thought was worthwhile as an investment. If you do this more than once, it probably makes sense to go get this if it's part of your regimen of cleaning up these reels. So we're going to go ahead and reinstall this. Then I'll show you how to rebuild it. We took it apart, we cleaned it, and you can see a lot of the tarnish and everything that was on here just came off very simply. There is some staining on here. That's probably expected from the old oils and grease, but it cleaned up very nicely. So let's go ahead and put the side plate ring back on. Okay, I had to pause the video for just a moment to find the right side plate in that pile of parts there. I did. So on the drive side plate, you used a 4-hole set. On the other side, it gets the 6 holes. That's because 2 of these in here have studs on them on the crossbars. You probably remembered that from earlier. So let's show you how to do this then in terms of reassembling the drive side plate. Start with a little grease. Remember that ultrasonic cleaner took all the grease off, right? So you want to put some of that back on. So you're going to put a little bit of blue grease onto the eccentric and onto the spool bearing. We're going to go into our parts tray then and find the spring that controls the yoke or free spool release. That's this assembly. So we're going to want to grab this and put a little bit of grease on both sides of this one so that the spool gear goes freely. Then you're going to grab the spool gear. You're going to check to make sure all of the teeth look good, that there's no chips, cracked, or broken teeth. And then when you go to install the spool gear, the inset or the little groove in it goes outwards. That's going to accept the spool. And then again, you want to put a little bit of grease onto that spool gear itself. So that's the setup here. Next, that just overlays into that hole in the slot there. and sits like that. So you can press down on that, and then you want to grab the screw that goes through that free spool release lever, comes out on the other side. And then we're going to work on putting the assembly on that's going to push and pull that down. So there's a hole in the assembly here, and there's a stud on the eccentric. Just want to line those two up. And once you get that locked down like that, you can put the nut back on now. Easier said than done. Some of you know that I have some trouble with small parts, but I will get it. We always do. There we go. I'm going to hand tighten that as much as I can. And then it's usually just another simple twist of the wrench to tighten it up the last part of it. Just make sure it's not turning on the other side. I'm feeling it's not turning on the other side. But the 10mm wrench will tighten that up. And then this is your assembly. And best to just move it over to lock it in at this point. So that's how your assembly rides there. And we'll take a look at the drag stack here. Now, this is a very well-made drag stack. It's nice chromed bridge. This gear sleeve is turning freely. If it wasn't, you could knock the pin out here and clean up any grease and grime underneath that. That's very much like a pen wheel. For now, we're just going to put a drop of oil into the center of it. That'll keep it turning freely. And then while we were cleaning all those parts out, I mentioned on the first part of this that I thought that the pen drags could be substituted here if you have the old drags. The pen Model 60 or 65 Long Beach drags are an exact match to that, so you can use them. These, however, have been replaced. These are relatively new and they're hard fabric, so we're going to go just put them right back in. They're in good condition, and there's a little bit of oil on there. You don't have to grease these because of it's more like a Teflon kind of a thing, this drag, than it is a fabric one. And then the setup is the same as a pen. You have a round washer goes after the first drag. Second drag goes, and then you have a key washer, which is the one with the ears, and that fits in the grooves of the main gear as such. And the last of the hard fabrics, the last of the round ones, and this is tarnish. This isn't pitting, and tarnish is fine. So as long as the face of it is smooth, then your drags will operate properly. And then their cap nut is a little bit different, but it's the cap nut nonetheless. And then we're ready to reinstall the rest of the side plates. So I have the dog, and I have the spring in the basket over there. So it goes like this. You take the gear assembly that you just redid. You put a little bit of grease onto the main gear. You don't have to put it in every tooth as it spins. You've already put some grease onto the spool gear. And as it spins, because they're two different sizes, it'll spread it around. And then we're just going to turn it like that, about a 90 degree to where it's going to finish. And take that anti-reverse dog, and that sits onto the pin in the side plate. And then we have the anti-reverse spring, and by its nature it's a spring. It's going to go in that cavity there. Be very careful as you set this that it doesn't shoot. Make sure that you have that controlled at all times, because if that shoots, you're going to be spending some time in your shop trying to find it. So that's how it properly sets. Then you can complete the rotation. And there's no lock on this. You have to line up the holes kind of by eye. And then we have the 4 bridge screws. And what I like to do on the bridge screws is put them in an X pattern. Don't tighten them down all the way. Just get them started. And then once you get the two, the other two will come a little bit easier. But just leave them loose until you put that last one in to make sure they're all started. Got one more to go here. And that's kind of it in terms of the bridge assembly. And then we can tighten them all down there. And for whatever reason, the one failure or the one weak point on these darn yellow-sided or cream-sided Garcia Mitchells is they always get the spider cracks on this bearing here. Very rare at this time to see one that doesn't have those cracks. Okay, once we have them all down, tighten them down just to give them that final turn there to make sure the bridge is secure. And before you do any more, just turn the reel to make sure it's turning, which it is. And that's kind of what the back of it looks like now. So you're going to go find the other side plate that had the there's the side plate that has the little groove indentation in it. That's not it. This is what I'm looking for. So you have to find the one that has the groove. Those are the insides. They sit in the little groove right here. So line that up and make sure you get the groove in so that it sits flush. And that's the side plate assembly for this reel. Okay, we're going to just lay that down to the side. We're going to start building the reel back up then. I'm going to take the reel seat, and we have the 4 what I called thumb screws before. Those are next. We're going to start with getting them in the reel seat. And again, like the other one, don't tighten it all the way down because you're going to need to line up the second one. If you tighten it all the way down, it makes it more difficult. There we go. Now you can tighten the first one back. Nice reels. They've stood the test of time, and there's a fan club out there, if you will, that makes these reels collectible. And if you have one, take care of it. And if you don't have one, I recommend go getting one because the reels are certainly nice reels to have. Just finding the right screws right now. There they are. I knew they were around somewhere. Okay, this is the third. So on this side, the thumb screws are the ones that go in, for lack of a better term. And then this will be the fourth. This one goes on the other side. And again, we took the whole reel apart, so you don't necessarily have to take all of it apart, but you do have to take this side apart when servicing the gear side plate. Okay, so next up then would be the spool. Let's put some lubrication on the spool shaft. Look at how nice that spool cleaned up there from the ultrasonic cleaner. I'm going to put some on the other side as well. You can insert the spool. Now we have the two that have the studs that sit in the side plate. And what I like to do is get the other one ready before, So again, just like the other one, there's going to be one of these that has the inset on it. It's the inside trim ring. And that's going to sit up on the top. That's going to kind of lock that in place. And what I like to do on these, I like to take the ones that are the ones with the studs and screw them in on this side so that I'm not doing a balancing act with them at all. And they go on the bottom. So get this one started as such. And then it'll go in the bottom hole here of the two. Then we can bring the assembly together. Okay, now we got the assembly together. The best way to tie this one in is to go for the screws that hold it into the reel seat. First, that'll keep equal pressure. Those are the shorter screws. Remember, there's 2 lengths of screws on these. The shorter screws go into the reel seat. Sometimes you need a centering pin. I'm a little bit off on the hole alignment. If you need the pin, use the pin. Sometimes you can do it by eye. Looks like we got it by eye there. Now I'm going to put the 2 up top that are secured on the other side with the thumb screws. This is the beauty of a parts tray. You just have to keep going into your parts tray to find your pieces and parts. It's nothing out of the ordinary. Then you can come back and tighten the ones that you started with those studs. On both sides of that, make sure that the whole assembly is tight on that. Okay, then we can put the gear sleeve or ferrule in. Now this side, this has 2 sides to it. This is the star adjuster. There's numbers on the one side. That's the outside. Go ahead and put that on. Tighten that up, give it a spin. Oh, look at that, huh? You wouldn't know that's a 35 or 40-year-old reel, would you? Just nice and clean and ready to go. All right, the handle's on next. And again, I can't say enough for that ultrasonic cleaner. It really made the job easy in terms of cleaning this up. All right, and we're going to use this. Now, this is the only piece. I have a lot of tools, but I don't have the tool for this one. I don't have the wrench that tightens this down. I use a channel lock pliers. Just careful. You don't want to go scraping up all of the chrome pieces. I'm just trying to grab it and just hand tighten it, being careful. I almost want to say raise it up a little bit. And then we have this little fork that's the tie down. So set that so that it lines up and have the teeth in it. And it looks like it needs just a little bit of more of a turn. So that you're lining that up with the hole here. We did that. Set screw. Another one of my famous small pieces and parts here. I just lost them both. Wish I could say someday it's going to get better, but it doesn't. So patience. Patience and real repair go together. So does a sense of humor. Okay, I think we finally got it there. Alrighty. So Sometimes it's hard for me because I'm trying to do the camera angle too. Yeah, it's tied down there. So there we go. Garcia Mitchell, 622. Those drags are working beautifully. The reel spins nice. It's a nice clean version of what it was. I just got a little bit of oil on there after the ultrasonic cleaning. I imagine you could spray it down a little bit. Just checking the clicker, make sure that that works. We're in good shape. So that's it. That's how you do it. If you have one of these, as I mentioned, now you know how to repair it. If you're thinking about getting one, go ahead and get one. They're great reels. And if you run into a position where you need the drags are available, swapping out the Penn reel drags. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please subscribe, and please tell your fishing buddies to subscribe as well. I'm looking to grow my viewer base, and if you want to see more, that's the best way to do it. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.